In 2017, retired Air Force intelligence officer Richard Doty made history when he admitted on camera that unacknowledged special access projects within the military do indeed stage alien abductions to lay the psychological foundation for an interplanetary conflict sometime in the near future.
We did do that, yes. OSI did that. There was a special group out of the 7602nd Air Intel Wing at Fort Belvoir that came out and did that. They had these people that had maybe some sort of defects, anatomical defects that were brought in to fool people into thinking they're aliens. Yeah. I can't give you any specifics because the program is still classified, and they probably still doing it. I wouldn't doubt it. They were still doing it.
This corroborates what dozens of other insiders have disclosed to Dr. Greer, but they're too afraid to testify on camera.
If you go back in time, why Area 51 really started, you learn that it was a base hidden inside of a base, nuclear weapons, and it was all about beating Stalin at his black propaganda campaign, as I write in the book, to hoax Americans in a War of the Worlds type scenario, whereby little men who looked like aliens would get out of an aircraft and the government would go crazy about it. And then Stalin would say, look, not only do we have technology better than you, but we have a better propaganda department than you. In my book, I interview a man who worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, who tells a different story, tells the story of receiving that craft at Area 51 in 1951, which is why the base is called Area 51.
Oh.
And that inside the craft were humans who had been altered, surgically altered to look like aliens, in a plan for Stalin to sort of twist Truman's arm, because at that time, we had the atomic bomb. When Roswell happened, we had the atomic bomb, and the Soviets did not.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
When you say humans that were surgically altered to look like aliens, do you mean, so this is 1951, so
Yes.
you're talking about 4 years after the supposed crash.
Yes.
So what
They had
was
the bodies,
left?
they kept the bodies.
They kept the
brought them.
bodies. In what?
And-
Formaldehyde? Like what?
Yes. And also because the idea was, and remember, or I can't say remember because you haven't read the book yet.
Right.
And I wrote this book 8 years ago. But it did really impact a lot of my thinking and working on government secrecy projects, because it makes you really consider what a hoax means and what it means to a population of people, and how the government begins to work with disinformation versus cover stories and all of that. But going back to answer your question, if you follow the logic that my source told me, that these were, modified human beings as part of a hoax. And the reason that I trust the source is because, Joe, he told me that he also worked on the program. So he had a burden to unload, right? And so if you follow that logic through, then the Bob Lazar story is that when Bob Lazar said, I saw an alien, it looked like this, it was small, it had big eyes. Those were those were the surgically modified humans that the government was doing experiments on. The source was a major player in the Manhattan Project. He went on and worked in the Atomic Energy Commission. I mean, there's a wing of a museum named after him. His accolades, his awards were so extraordinary. With a Q clearance, that's what you have when you have access to nuclear secrets. So if someone has a Q clearance for decades and they're full of garbage, you really have to ask, my God, should this guy have a Q clearance? I mean, that's reverse engineering his credibility. The book came out, his wife of 65 years knew it was him, okay? And I went out to Las Vegas and sat there in a room with the source and his wife. And she said, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you made this all up, to her husband. And he said, it's the truth. I mean, that's a triangular version of getting at the truth. But again, to reiterate, I believe he believes what he told me was the truth. That was the truth he was told. We met because I was interviewing nuclear weapons engineers who were setting off nuclear bombs in Area 51, in the Nevada test site, Area 12, Area 23. And they all said to me, you've got to talk to the top engineer of all this weaponry. And they gave me his name. And we talked for days and hours about nuclear weapons. And then, in one conversation, he began to cry and told me this story that I was like, what? He was crying because he participated in our version of the human experiments. Because what the Russians do, we do. According to him, we had a small program in 1951 where we wanted to see how the Russians did what they did, how they made human beings look like this. He said they were handicapped children. And he told me that he participated in this. So again, I mean, unless you have someone that lost their mind at age 90 and was willing to tell their wife of 65 years, I lost my mind. He had a grandchild that was born that way. And the grandchild did not live long. The grandchild died. And it made him feel so guilty about what he had done that he felt compelled to confess, if you will. And I remember saying to him, why are you telling me this? Why don't you tell a priest? And he said, a priest would judge me, and I can tell you won't.